This year is the 50th anniversary of two milestones that touch on issues related to this conference. You know, I read a while back that if you're a baby boomer, the current era is pretty much a constant string of 50th anniversaries. And this year, of course, is the 50th anniversary of two milestones that touch on issues related to this conference. In 1965, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission was created, with only one woman member, by the way. And in 1965, the Supreme Court ruled in Griswold versus Connecticut that a state ban on contraceptives for married couples was unconstitutional. Now, who would have thought that 50 years later, employment equality and reproductive rights would still be making headlines? Who would have thought that would still be such a struggle? You know, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 50 years after the EEOC was created, women make an average of 78 cents for every dollar. You've heard this year after year. And that their male counterparts make, a discrepancy that hasn't significantly changed in more than a decade. And 50 years after the Griswold decision, our current Supreme Court says that corporations have religious beliefs that trump women's reproductive rights. We did make progress in California this year. Paid sick days, higher CalWORKs grants, and we expanded the state's program to help keep at-risk working moms in housing and their families out of homelessness. We made sure California health plans have to cover contraception without cost sharing. Again, why are we doing these things now? Because we must. But we did it. We moved to prevent discrimination against pregnant graduate students. And of course, AB 154, a law that I wrote, took effect in 2014. And you know, AB 154, and many of you were part of making that happen, makes sure that women have timely access to reproductive health care and expands the trained healthcare professionals who may perform early abortions. And I just want to say, at this point, as a former director of women's health clinics, I'm thrilled to see the Women's Health Policy Fair that's being conducted as part of this summit. And this is where I get to give a particular shout out to my friends in Planned Parenthood, and certainly women's health specialists who brought me to Sacramento years ago to work in their Sacramento clinic when they first opened it. So, you know, what a wonderful emotional thing it is for me as they celebrate their 40th year this year to be able to see things come full circle. So thank you for doing that. I think it's a smart component to add to this summit. I'm also proud that last year Governor Brown signed my bill to strengthen family justice centers and to help increase privacy for victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse. Victims are more likely, we all know, to seek services if they know that they have the final say in how their information is going to be used. And frankly, one of the most important steps we took to help women and children in 2014 was lifting the ban on assistance to families where an adult had a prior drug felony. Yes. That draconian and very vindictive ban has been punishing children for mistakes of their parents since 1997. Its repeal was long overdue, and I want to thank you for helping with that. How do we keep the California dream alive for women and working families? How do we increase health, wealth, and power of women and girls in California? Well, without being too flippant, I want to say the answer is you tell me, or more correctly, you tell us. That is the power of what we do today with my colleagues who are here and with organizations that are working up and down the state to support the lives of California women. Because the proposals and action plans developed at this summit will be important tools to make progress on the issues that brought us together today. And of course, one of the key issues is going to be the budget. It's one of the key policy documents we have. On Friday, the governor released the 2015-2016 budget proposal, and now the Assembly and the Senate has the ability to build on the governor's proposal and craft a budget that's fiscally responsible and that includes smart investments to reduce poverty, strengthen the middle class, and fulfill the promise of access of medical care. Going forward, I know that Assembly Member Shirley Weber, chair of our Assembly Budget Committee, will be a powerful force for women and families, as she always has been. As our economy continues to grow, we have to make sure that economic growth must also flow to working people and to those who aren't able to make ends meet. We must continue to address the challenge of income inequality and ensure a strong middle class and a path into the middle class for those who are struggling. It's how I got here. It's how many of us got here. And as you also know, the Public Policy Institute of California released a study last year at the end of the year showing that roughly 50% of California children live in poverty or near poverty, usually in households that are headed by women. PPIC also showed that without the state's safety net programs, an additional 1.3 million California kids would be poor. Nationally, according to a new report out of UC Davis, the Census Bureau estimates that the refundable tax credits, such as the Earned Income Tax Credit, EITC, lower the poverty rate by up to 3 percentage points, or around 9 million people. That's not insignificant. SNAP benefits lower the national poverty rate by nearly 2 percentage points, or 6 million people. The UC Davis study also points to research that shows that safety net programs improve the lives of the poor, including things like infants in families at high risk of poverty being healthier because of Medicaid, SNAP, and WIC. I mean, these are studies. This is research. So having an effective safety net, while we also work to provide the good jobs and affordable housing that will bring families out of poverty, must be a priority. CalWORKs, of course, is an area that directly affects women and their families living in poverty. There are many compelling priorities in the area of CalWORKs. I know there's a continued discussion about repealing the Maximum Family Grant Rule, or MFG, and I can't wait to hear what Holly Mitchell called it. I'm sure she had a few good things to say, but you know, I'm just glad I didn't have to follow her today. But the Maximum Family Grant Rule, critically important issue, critically important to families. It prohibits additional cash assistance for children born while on aid. And research shows that this policy to modify behavior has had no effect on birth rates. And in order to claim an exemption to this rule, a woman must assert contraceptive failure or rape. Now, what an invasive, insulting criteria. So we've got to take a look at these things. Other proposals include creating a state-funded earned income tax credit, much like the federal, and updating and reinvesting in child care, which is crucial support for working families or for parents who want to go back to work. And it employs thousands of Californians as caregivers. So it's a win. We put people to work, we employ people. There are many bill ideas on the women's policy side being discussed right now, and here are just a few that I've heard talked about, and maybe some you've talked about today, and more we hope to hear. Sexual violence and harassment on our campuses, special challenges facing women and girls of color, flexible work schedules for working mothers, asset building, and gender pay equity. Staff are also researching potential bills in the following areas: empowering and improving midwifery, access to birthing centers for low-income women, and improving victims' compensation fund benefits. So these are some of the areas that are circulating under the dome. And I'm excited to see what other ideas flow out of today's summit and the conversations that develop from your ongoing partnerships and collaborations. My parents' lives were incredibly hard, way too short, having lived the difficult lives of blue-collar workers without health coverage, no sick leave, lower wages than they deserve for the work that they did, and certainly we lived in substandard housing. You know, I can't do that for my parents today. They're no longer here. But what we can do, and I think as legislators, the thing that we enjoy more, and you as community organizations and nonprofits, what we can do is work to make sure that the lives of people like my parents, that we are working on behalf of them to change policies and make it so that they have an opportunity that I was so richly afforded as I was growing up. And each of us here, I know, is committed to ensuring that the challenges before us today won't be a struggle and won't still be making headlines 50 years from now.